Members of the jury, it is a not unusual thing for a judge to say regarding a case like this that it is a simple case. It is very unusual for me to say that sort of thing because I realize if there were a contract before you, you could have in writing what was the expression of the mind of the two parties. But this sort of case is one that arises in the twinkling of an eye, that nobody in this drama apprehended what is going to be the result of coming into this courtroom to settle differences. The simplest way in which you can operate is to try to make a moving picture of this whole scene all the way from Ohio to New York on that Saturday night and the intervening time up to Tuesday following, I believe, when the accident occurred. You have to scrutinize witnesses very closely ordinarily. I take it, however, that in view of the intervening time, the time that elapsed between this accident and today, there has been very little share in contrast on many of the things that go to make up the final picture. Of course, there are differences of recollection, and some of them may be serious and some of them may not. Oftentimes, in the back of a picture, we get a clue that gives us enlightenment. It may be an infinitesimal thing, but it gives us enlightenment as to the solution of the whole problem. Here you have heard about the suitcase, and you have heard about the purpose of the visit of both husband and wife on Tuesday afternoon. And there are many things that have been uttered here, one of which may enable you to find out just what the status of that woman was in that garage that afternoon, which is the pivot upon which this whole question revolves. During the course of the trial, I have had to decide upon motions and objections, but that is on my side of the court. The facts are yours. Even when I say at the end of the plaintiff's case or the end of the defendant's case that I deny a motion for dismissal, that is on my side of the court and not on yours. There are legal questions involved, and you are not to vex yourself about anything of that kind. I am to say what my will tells me is right just now in order to enable you to see what pathways the law dictates. You have the facts before you, and when I tell you as to the law will be infallible to you, and you are to believe me as to the law. The law is not so difficult to understand, but the application of it may be difficult. You know ordinarily what a negligence case is. It is one where the plaintiff says the defendant did not partition or perform the duty that was due from him to me, and I was hurt as to my person or my property, and that omission was the proximate cause of that injury. Now, here is what we have, which is a sort of light, and I am trying now to dissipate the twilight and make it not night but day. However, I succeed is a matter of conjecture. This woman before you, and she tells her story. If her story is materially wrong and is willfully false, you are to throw out that part of the story which is false as to a material thing, and you have the option to say that the infection goes throughout the whole carcass of the testimony and cast that out too. It is never quite true, and I am not saying that this in castigation or criticism of anyone here, but to give you the criteria by which you are to determine your right where you started there may be a falsehood here. Now, this suitcase is not a critical thing in this story, except as to her credibility. Whether it was there or not in the premises, it did not of itself give her the right to go in there as an invitee. It is one of those important things to remember as a clue to the truth of a whole story. Nor had she the right to assume, because her husband was working there, that she was an invitee, which I will explain to you in a minute. She had no right to go into the premises as an invitee because her husband was working there, but she claims she was invited. She was not invited on the business of the defendant, but if she was invited on business of her own. An invitee who was injured there And in the same category,